Yes. Thank you very much indeed for this wonderful invitation. Uh, I would say to Baramati, to Vidya Pratishthan, because my mind goes back several years ago when my most respected guru and mentor, Sri Sharad Pawar Sahib, I remember his picking me up from my home in Pune and our driving to Baramati. And I remember that journey because we discussed science, technology, innovation, and I found that you knew more about it than I did. And I could soon see the reason because when we entered Baramati, then I saw the transformation that he had brought out. And I saw Vidya Pratishthan, I saw the beginning of a new course on biotechnology. I remember having conversations with the faculty, with the students, and I was so very impressed. And the most remarkable point I remember is that he took me home, and when he took me home, he showed his vast library, like the one that you see here. His library was much bigger. आणि ते मराठीत म्हणाले ग्रंथ हेच माझे गुरु आणि मी ही सगळी पुस्तकं वाचली आहेत. आता त्यांनी जे केलं आहे ते मला जमलेलं नाहीये. माझी जी पुस्तकं आहेत तिथे माझ्या स्टडी रूम मधनं मी बोलतोय, मी सगळी वाचली नाहीत, पण साहेबांनी ती सगळी वाचली होती. आणि हे मी सुरुवातीलाच का सांगतो आपल्याला, वाय एम आय मेन्शनिंग दिस राईट इन द बिगिनिंग, इज द रिझन इज द फॉलोइंग, that when you get your degrees, you think that is the end of education. That is not. It is the beginning of education. I remember Banaras Hindu University had invited me to give the convocation, the 100th convocation address. And at that time, I had said that दीक्षांत का मतलब शिक्षांत नहीं होता. Dikshant is graduation, Shikshant is end of education. No, it is the beginning of education because the knowledge doubles up every 2, 3, 4 years. And what you have learned in your degree, you will be outdated within 2, 3 years. So you have to continue to learn. ही जी सरस्वती पूजा आहे ही आयुष्याच्या शेवटच्या दिवसापर्यंत करायला हवी आहे. म्हणून मी म्हटलं की दीक्षांत म्हणजे शिक्षांत नव्हे. आणि हे तुम्ही करू शकता जेव्हा आपण साहेबांचं अनुकरण करू शकता. वाचणं, वाचणं आणि वाचणं. आणि त्याच्यामुळेच मला वाटेत आम्ही जे पुणे ते बारामती याच्यामध्ये माझ्याहून त्यांना जास्त माहिती होतं, मी सायंटिस्ट असून सुद्धा. याचं कारण म्हणून वाचन. आणि हे मुद्दाम सुरुवातीलाच मी आपल्याला सांगू इच्छितो. आय एम mentioning this right in the beginning to emphasize the power of the great iconic leader who has created Vidya Pratishthan, and he should be our inspiration. I'm very happy that this coincides with 111th birth anniversary of Homi Bhabha, because he was not only one of the greatest scientists but science leader. So it's a great inspirational day, I would say. Let us look at the word today. The word today, if somebody had said, this is how it is going to be today, on 1st of January when we began 2020, I would not have believed it. What has happened? The biggest disaster in terms of loss of lives, loss of livelihoods, in just 100 days, 100 million families moved from or plummeted from poverty to extreme poverty. Now, this was work that was done over the years, and within 100 days it vanished. 450 million jobs were lost in 100 days. 1.6 billion children went out of school. $10 trillion economic loss took place. One of the greatest recessions after World War I has happened. And when this has happened, the world is not the same as it was pre-COVID. And the post-COVID world will also not be the same. And therefore, we have to see, what do we do? Now, in that, my spirit is always very different. Then you would say whatever has been destroyed, you reconstruct it, recover. That is not my word. My word, my message is what you see in this book that I wrote several years ago. It says reinventing India. What it means is that we don't want to recover. This is an opportunity for us to reimagine, rethink, and reinvent a new India. And how can we do that? Now, my talk is on creating Atma Nirbhar Bharat with Atmavishwas. And our Prime Minister has given a very inspirational message that we must become Atma Nirbhar. We must become self-reliant. But what I'm adding to it is that we can't become self-reliant unless we are self-reliant, self-confidence. आपण आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनवू शकत नाही जोपर्यंत आपल्याला आत्मविश्वास नाही आणि आत्मसन्मान नाही, त्याला आपण सेल्फ डिग्निटी असं म्हणतो. तर हे कसं करायचं ह्याच्यावर आज मी माझे विचार मांडणार आहे. तर त्यामध्ये काही इश्यूज असे असतात की ते फंडामेंटल असतात अँड दे हॅव टू बी सेट राईट ऍक्च्युली. तर त्यामुळे आय विल लाईक टू स्टार्ट विथ ए फंडामेंटल दॅट इज education. I remember, I'm a scientist, so I must begin with a formula. So I will start with an equation. I remember there was a big discussion on what is the most powerful equation that the scientists have created. So somebody got up and said Newton's first law, second law. F equal to ma, force equal to mass into acceleration. Somebody got up and said, no. It is Einstein, Albert Einstein. E equal to mc square. E is energy, m is mass, and c is velocity of light, as you all know. And I was sitting quiet. Somebody came to me and said, you are not spoken. What do you think is the most powerful equation? I said, the most powerful equation is not Newton, is not Einstein. It is E equal to F. So they wondered, what is E, what is F? I said, E is education and F is future. Education is future. Education is Bhavishya. Now, as soon as I say this, you will say, you are a scientist, you have to prove it. So I will prove it. The proof comes on 17 March 2000. What happened on that day? That day, the erstwhile President R.K. Narayanan gave Padma Bhushan to two people at the same time, in the same ceremony, one after the other. One was Ratan Tata and second was Raghunath A Mashelkar. Then you would say, how does it prove if K.R. Narayanan gives Padma Bhushan to Ratan Tata and Raghunath A Mashelkar, how does it prove E equal to F? So I'll tell you why that is so. See, I was born in a very poor family. My father died when I was 6. I studied under street lights. 2 meals a day was a challenge. I walked barefoot to the school until I was 12. I still remember. My mother struggled to bring me up. And in the SEC, Secondary Certificate School Examination in Maharashtra, among 135,000 students, I had stood 11th. And still I was going to leave education because my poor mother, and I was the only son, she could not afford the struggle. And then came Tata Scholarship, Sir Dorab Tata Scholarship. How much was it? 60 rupees per month. Because of that scholarship, I could study. So that was my story. K.R. Narayanan's story was equally interesting. He was also born in a very poor family. He used to walk kilometers to school. His parents could not afford the tuition fees. So outside the class, he would stand and take notes. And then, out of that, he also got an opportunity because he got a Tata Scholarship. And he went abroad and so on and so forth. So he rose. He got Tata Scholarship, he rose to become president. I got Tata Scholarship to go a Padma Bhushan. But interesting was that K.R. Narayanan gave permission to Tata, Ratan Tata. All right? Can you just imagine, but for Tata family, he would not be where he was. So you can see now all this was possible because of the power of the equation E equal to F. Both of us could study, both of us had an opportunity to go for not only education, higher and higher education, and that is how we became what we were. So I think E is equal to F is the most powerful equation, and that is why Vidya Pratishthan is doing a great job by building the future of the nation by talking education to all people. That's the first thing. Second one is that it is not education that matters, it is opportunity that matters. We fought for the National Innovation Foundation and I offered to be the chairman. Thing, chief,
मुलांचे काम असते पोळ्या करणं सगळ्या पोळ्या कसं रोज तुम्ही सगळ्या पोळ्या करायच्या करायचं काय करायचं
background,
देतो पीठ पळून तुला
stop the background noise.
थोडं सुरू झालं की बंद होत नाही.
Okay. So the issue was that we were trying to select the chief innovation officer, and a number of candidates came, and I saw that one of the candidates said, I mean, I saw his CV, and he said, I'm an expert in branding. So I said, oh, that's great. You must have branded the refrigerator, you must have branded a car. Why don't you brand my India? So he was baffled. Then I told him, I'll give you a hint. The, America, for example, is looked at as a land of opportunity. Oh, immediately he said, yes, India is a land of ideas. Now, here is the good news and bad news. India is a land of ideas, but America is a land of opportunity. Now, India has changed. This really has, and
असं पण बिल असतील का मोबाईल कुठे
I think there is some background noise. Can we stop it, please? Okay. So therefore, the challenge before us is the following now. We had first right to education, which we had. But from that, we must move to right education and right way of education. Now, in terms of right way of education, we have seen already the change. The change is the following. The change is we had first education 1.0, where it was actually Guru Shishya Parampara. You know, there used to be one Guru, and then the Shishya transmission was 1:1. All the knowledge was with the Guru, and he would transmit. Then came education 2.0, which was the assembly line approach, basically. You know, where once a teacher and there will be 30, 40, 50, 60 students, right? But now there is education 3.0, and that is the digital learning, that is the online learning, which we are seeing. So therefore, the most important part is it is new way of learning. And as I said, 1.6 billion children were within 100 days, they were left with no choice but online learning. Now the tragedy is that out of 1.6 billion children, 1/3 of them almost do not have access to digital media. They don't have, like I have here a smartphone. I have here an iPad. I'm speaking to you from a MacBook Pro. These kinds of things, they are not simply available for with the poor. And therefore, if you see today's newspapers, there is Indian Express editorial, and I will read out from them. And this is a report of annual status of education report, ASER 2000. It says ASER report flags burden of digital inequality on children and opportunity for government schools. A majority of children without access to internet has been thrown into distress. And the report shows that only 11% of students have access to online classes because others don't have. From rural villages, I'm talking about rural villages. I'm not talking about Baramati. So therefore, what is happening is when this young Raghunath Mashelkar was given 60 rupees per month, there was nothing more that he required. All right. But now that is not the case. You can give a scholarship to a young student, but that will not be adequate. And therefore, this, what I like to call as a digital deprivation, has to be removed. Because if you don't remove that digital deprivation, they will not have access to education. And if they have no access to education, they will not have future. So I think that is a very, very important point I want to make. So I said right to education, right way of education, but there is something in between. That is right education. Now, I remember I was in the US and I heard a very senior person there say that 2/3 of the students who are in senior classes today will end up in jobs which do not exist today. So what do? How do you teach students for jobs which don't exist? We always teach them about jobs that exist. So therefore, what is going to happen is the new challenge is going to be that the technology is moving so rapidly, and this we call as exponential technology. What are they? For example, they are Internet of Things, big data analytics, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, 3D printing, and blockchain, and so on and so forth. So these advanced technologies are moving so fast that the current jobs are getting destroyed. For example, we had this muscle power, all right? So brawn, as we call it. So with that, we did work by our hand. Now robots are taking, advanced automation is taking over. What happens to those jobs now? Then we used to do this brain work, right? And the brain work sort of created this knowledge economy. But now with artificial intelligence, machines will start thinking. And those machines will do even better. Then what do? I mean, we have seen recent examples, this AlphaGo, which is a machine which was trained to play the game Go, which is even more difficult than chess. By the way, the world champion was beaten by that in the man versus machine contest. So that we would say, oh, there is no big news because Gary Kasparov was also beaten that way. No. But in this case, what happened was that in game 32, in game 3, the move 32 that the AI machine made was such that people say that there is 1 in 10,000 chance that a human will make it. Or in other words, the machine that you are training will do jobs better than what you could do. So therefore, this deep learning, machine learning is going to places. So therefore, what would be the skills that will be necessary then? All right, when sort of these jobs move. In fact, I have a paper called, Exponential Technology Industry 4.0 and Future of Jobs in India. And it is there on my website, www.mashelkar.com. I repeat, www.mashelkar.com. Please have a look at it. What are the new jobs that are going to come? And therefore, unless our education system is able to teach those new jobs, and there are, because of the digitalization, now there are something like 55 new jobs. One has a list that I have given there. So if we keep on teaching the students jobs of the past and jobs of the present, I think we are going to mess up with their future. That education will not be equal to future, basically. So there is a continuous reinvention that is required, and that is sort of a big challenge. Now, with this background, I come to the topic, which is Atma Nirbhar Bharat. Atma Nirbhar is self-reliant. Now, in that Atma Nirbhar Bharat, I think the most important part I want to emphasize is that that does not mean that we will go back to the old days of import substitution, put big barriers around, and therefore we'll protect ourselves and so on and so forth. We have to be basically part of the global supply chains. And therefore, how do we actually change? I think that is going to be the question. Now, in that, we would say that, all right, Atma Nirbhar Bharat means make everything, right? Make yourself everything. But can we do that? That is going to be the big issue. Why am I saying that? Because when we say make in India, we started it some time ago, but it can't be just assembled in India. It has to be invented in India. Because if you don't do that, you will lose out in a big way. Let me give an example. See, for example, I am carrying this iPhone. Foxconn manufactures it. Where? In China. And for every such smartphone that gets produced, China gets $10. But 4.5 million jobs are created. But for every iPhone that is sold, Apple takes away $350. Okay? So what are the options before India? One is sweat it out and assemble iPhones and get $10. The second is think, innovate, create, and get $350. But the third, but very few jobs, okay? Because technology jobs are very few. Jobs in assembly line or manufacturing are very large, okay? But the third option that we have is one, sweat it out, create those mobile phones, get $10, but also at the same time invent, create the new Apples of this world here and get $350. But even in that make in India, if you don't have this invent in India, there is a penalty. Why will there be a penalty? I'll tell you the brilliant example is right here in India. If we just say make in India as assembled in India, will vanish. Why? Just take Indian Mobile, Micro, Max, Carbon, etc. If you look at just 5 years ago, 2015, their share was 45%. All right. And Chinese who were trying to come in, their share was 9%. We are 45%, they were 9%. What are we today? From 45%, we have come down to 7%. And what is China? From 9%, they have gone to 68%. Right here in India. Why is that? Because as far as India was concerned, they had these trading business models. They were just assembling, basically, taking STQs and so on and so forth. All right. No invention, no research, no. But the Chinese, actually, there was a continuous innovation that they did. They did sort of research, etc., etc. And that made the difference. Okay. So the point I want to emphasize is innovation, invention is a must, even when you say make in India, even when you say Atma Nirbhar Bharat. And that is why all educational institutions have to look at three things. First is education, second is research, and third is innovation. Education looks at known knowledge and disseminates it. Research creates new knowledge, and innovation converts knowledge into wealth and social good. Okay? And all three have to happen. You just can't be educational institutions. And that is why I was going through your website, Vidya Pratishthan, early in the morning, and I saw that you are very much in research. and you are very much in entrepreneurship, I think we have to build all that together. So that is the first part. Then the other thing, then we'll say, yeah, if make is not an option, we can't make everything. So therefore we have to buy. All right. So buy is another option. But for buying, if you think that technologies will be simply available, they are not. They will not give it to you. Like, for example, you look at alpha olefin technology. I remember, you make alpha olefin sulfonate, detergents, clothes washing, there is nothing missing. But the companies would not give you because they did not want you to be the competitor. The best of the technologies are not available. If there is a Mark III technology, they will show you Mark II and give you Mark I. As simple as that. So alpha olefin technology we did not get. Acrylic acid, you make diapers out of that saponified acrylic acid. What is so great in that? Roman horse will not give that technology. So therefore, even when you take buy, it depends upon your own strength, by the way. That is, so we talked about two options, buy or make. But there is a third option, which is buy to make better. That means you don't make everything, but you buy certain components and make better. Now, if you see what we are buying, we have a huge dependence on China. Okay. For example, if you look at electronics, 45%. Manufacturing capital goods, 32%. In API, which are called active pharmaceutical ingredients, we are known as pharmacy of the world, right? We produce the best quality and cheapest generic drugs, and we are suppliers to 45 countries. But all that industry will collapse because the APIs that we are talking about, 70% of them are from China. So supposing they stop the supply, what happens to our industry? And therefore, I want to congratulate the government. They have taken a very wise decision that will not depend upon China and will reduce the dependence on China. And as you already seen, a couple of weeks ago, China has already increased the prices of API. Why did we depend so much upon them? Can't we manufacture APIs? Of course we can. Were we not manufacturing APIs? Of course we were. We had IDPL, so many public sector. But what happened was that they were polluting industry, and also China started supplying cheap API. So we said, fine. But now we are sort of totally dependent on them. So government had taken some fantastic decisions to create API parks, to create incentives for people. And this is one area where we don't have to depend on them. If you were to ask me, I'm not saying that because I'm trained as a chemical engineer or I was director of National Chemical Laboratory. But I can tell you, we have been fantastic in process chemistry, process engineering. We talk about green revolution, 70% of our agrochemicals were produced by CSR technologies, NCL and Indian Institute of Chemical Technology and so on and so forth. So we can do that. All right. So this has been a wake-up call for us that we can't depend upon others. And therefore, in order that our pharma industry, which is the best in the world as far as generic drugs is concerned, to protect it, we have to be sort of safe. We have to also see that when we buy certain components, like I was hearing Rajiv Bajaj on the other day, he said that I export 15,000 crore worth of two-wheelers. But for that, there is 1,000 crore import from China of some critical component that I have, basically. So he depends on that, all right? So therefore, gradually, we cannot simply say China-less, that means no China, boycott China. We can't do that. Our industry requires. What we have to do is less China, less and less China, less and less China over a period of time. And that has to be integrated in what we do. So when I say buy to make better, this is what I mean. But my best example of buy to make better is Japan. Was transistor their technology? No. They just licensed out the patents from there and they produced the best transistors in the world. All right. So therefore you can license these technologies and become the best manufacturers. So that is our thirst. The fourth option is make to buy better. What did that mean? Now I give you the example of alpha olefin. I was on the board of IPCL when we went to Idemitsu in Japan. They would not give technology. Shell in US, they will not give technology. And Chevron, they will not give technology and so on. So I remember I said, let us start our own work. And we started doing alpha olefin work. And we went up to the pilot plant stage, basically. And then some finance person torpedoed that proposal and we stopped. And I remember these, I was traveling with one of these companies, some executive, and he said, we are watching you very carefully. Supposing you are gone up to pilot plant, we would have been scared that if you go ahead, you will become a competitor for us. And then we would have given you a technology. So we have learned that over a period of time. When we talk about Atma Nirbhar Bharat, we have seen that. I remember I was a member of Science Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister in Rajiv Gandhi's time, 1986, 87, 88, 89, etc. And at that time, he asked us, what are we good at? And we are a poor country, but we must be good at something. And I remember Professor Atam Nirbhar was sitting next to me, said, we are good at this. Then he said, what do we do with it? And that time, supercomputers were denied to us. And $10 million were given, 3 years were given. And great Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, our friend and great guru, he started CDAC right here in Pune. And we created Param 8000. You remember that, in 1991. And it was done in less than $10 million and less than 3 years. Fantastic. And then what happened was we created Param 10,000, 100 gigaflops in 1993. And can you imagine a country which was waiting to import, we exported some of these to Russia. Can you just imagine that? And not only that, I remember there was a Washington Post newspaper report saying that angry India does it. Having been angry, India actually created its own supercomputer. And I always ask, why are we not permanently angry? All right, like in this pandemic, once our scientists and technologists were challenged, what they have done is something fantastic. I'll come to that. So the important issue was that the same company, Cray, which had denied us the supercomputer, they came and say, now we want to offer. That's what I mean. So it is making to buy better is the fourth option. That means if you make it and you show some strength, like Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, another of my great gurus. I have many gurus, by the way. He used to always say, you can extend your hand and say, shake hand. But it is up to the other person to shake hand. He will look at your hand, how strong it is, and then only decide whether I can want to shake hand or not. So there is no substitute to becoming technologically strong. Supercomputer is a brilliant example. The whole world was denying it to us, but as soon as we created our own, they said, no, now we are coming. So what are the options I have given now? Buying is one, making is one, buying to make better, and making to buy better. Now what is the fifth option? Fifth option, which I love, is making it together. Because we have great strengths together, and we can basically make them by the industry, the academia, the national research laboratories, everybody coming together. I remember when I was the Director General of CSIR, I created a program called NIMITLI, New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative. All right, where public and private sector companies will come together. And I remember when I left in 2006, retired, there were more than 100 plus private sector and 250 institutions who were working together on several sort of programs. That's the way to do it. I mean, today we talk about vaccine, for example, right? And there are 3 vaccines that are that India is itself trying to work on and produce now. This is all public-private partnership. If you just see the way it has happened. On the other day, you must have seen, actually, see, this is the beauty of it. Once India is challenged, it can do. I mean, when we started, for example, the pandemic, we did not have diagnostics. We did not have vaccines. We did not have drugs. We did not have personal protection equipment. We are importing that. We did not have ventilators. And how we have changed now? By public-private partnership, we have created miracles. And this new community of startups, young startups, they are showing the way, basically. Take, for example, diagnostic. Right here in Pune, we had within 6 weeks after the pandemic started, that my lab came up with RT-PCR, and within 3 months they had tested out 1.2 million. And we were struggling. Just before that, we were struggling. We were depending upon the Chinese imports, and you remember we had to actually stop them because they were not of good quality. Didn't have. Now look at the latest. Actually, what is the best? Normally I hope none of you had COVID, but if somebody has had, you must have realized that it takes a day, more than a day, for you to get the report and all that, etc. No, it will be wonderful if you could do it in 1 hour. And our ICGB, Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, which was one of my CSI labs, basically has done it. And they have done it not for 2,500 rupees, just for 500 rupees. They do it in 1 hour, and they use the latest technology. You must have seen that this year the Nobel Prize went to CRISPR. That CRISPR-Cas9 technology they have used to create one with sensitivity and specificity which is the highest in the world, 98%. Our own scientists here. But they were not challenged before. As soon as they were challenged, you can see what they are. Ventilators, for example. I remember our Marico company, all of you must be knowing, Saffola and all that that you use. Harsh Mariwala is the producer. So he created Marico Innovation Foundation. I happen to be its chairman of that Innovation Foundation from 2003, I think he created, for last 70 years. So he created a grand challenge, 2.5 crore. He and Amit Mitra, Amit Chandra, they came together, put 2.5 crore from their own pocket, and I was the chairman to select. And we were not making ventilators. Suddenly we find we have created ventilators, great companies like KPIT Technology, which were in software services. They came and they created a fantastic ventilator. There was one Noka Robotics, IIT startup, basically. They created sort of ventilators, and they were world class and at a fraction of the price. And most importantly, Indian innovations have to be for Indian conditions. All right. Now, suddenly you saw in Mumbai there was a power breakdown on the other day, but ventilators have to run. The patient cannot wait till the power comes back. They have created something which runs even when such power disturbances are there. Then piped industrial medical oxygen. In villages you won't have, in many hospitals you won't have. Doesn't matter. They have systems by which they can do without it, and they pull up oxygen from the air. You have untrained people, doesn't matter. I mean, for 8 hours, they can go without untrained people. They have that automated systems and so on and so forth. So innovation for India, Indian innovation, I think is sort of what is most important. I'll give you one more example of that, just to show what I mean. In my mother's name, I've created Atma Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award. This is the 10th year of the award, by the way. And the kind of innovation that we have are not just best practice, they are next practice. Okay? And they are made for India, for Indian conditions. Because the first thing in India that you need is affordable. But at the same time, it has to be excellent. Now you would say, what is affordable can't be excellent, what is excellent cannot be affordable. I'll give you an example. One of the awards went to Rahul Rastogi. Okay, all these are young people, huh? All the startups, all 9 are startups, young startups, and creating fantastic breakthroughs. So one of them, his father had a problem with ECG. Since a lot of young students are listening, I'm telling you how those innovations can be done, which can beat the rest of the world, ahead of the rest of the world. So his father had this challenge on his heart, and he had to be taken to the hospital, and then you lie down, then you put those 12 leads, there is a nurse, it takes half an hour for you to get paper read out. He said, why? And he created something which is a portable ECG which you can keep in your pocket. Now you will not believe it. So here it is. This is a portable ECG, okay, that he created. How much does it cost? 2,500 rupees. Where can you get it? You can go to Amazon and put Sanket, S-A-N-K-E-T, and you can buy it. Okay. Now, what is special about this? What is special about this is, you can see here, these are 2 sensors, 2 points. where you put your two thumbs in for 15 seconds. Then here is a sensor. You can see that. Okay. This is your heart. 15 second, 15 second, 15 second. Then below the heart, 15 second, 15 second, 15 second. And if you have downloaded an app called Sanket, as I have, the ECG will come to you. Okay. Now you say, how good is that ECG? Well, it is a 12-lead ECG, fully certified by all the agencies, including the European agency. Okay. So you get quality. Now, what does it mean for India? When we talk about digitalization wave and things are going for digitalization, and when we talk about digital health, you can see the importance of this now. Supposing there is a old lady in a village and she had pains in the heart and ECG had to be taken, she would be put in a bullock cart or a scooter and taken few kilometers. It doesn't have, if there is a connectivity, and that is what the government is trying to do now. She can do this. This is like using a thermometer, basically. And she can then have the benefit of not the rural doctor, but the best expert from Pune, from Mumbai, from anywhere, so as to say. All right. So this is transformative. And the cost per ECG is just 5 rupees. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that by just giving one example, and you can go on the Atma Nirbhar Bharat Foundation website, I've created a foundation in a name to support that, and you can see. And our people are coming out with such innovations now. For example, there is this dozy. You know, you must have seen that we were running short of ICUs. Okay. So he has created an ICU where any bed can be converted into all those sophisticated facilities that ICU has by using the IoT, Internet of Things. There are sensor-based systems which are sort of put inside so that all your vitals are actually monitored, and the cost is just 5% of what ICU will take. You can see what difference it will actually make. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that, for example, personal protection equipment, we're all importing. When the pandemic started, can you just believe it? Now we're exporting. We are now exporting. So from import, we became an export country. But not so till that shock came of pandemic. Then we all woke up. So that is why I go back to what was said earlier. Why are we not permanently angry? Why are we not permanently prepared? Why is it that only when we are challenged, sort of we deliver? I think the good news is that we deliver. So in Atma Nirbhar Bharat, when I say with Atmavishwas, this is what I mean. Atma Nirbhar Bharat has to be created on 5 planks. What are those 5 planks? Buy, make to buy better, buy to make better, and make it together as Team India. These are the 5 planks. So I like to end my speech. I've been given 45 minutes. I'm running out of time now. So just as I've given you 5 planks on building Atma Nirbhar Bharat, I'll give you, because there are lots of students here, 5 mantras. I call them Mashelkar mantras, which I hope will help you. And these mantras are based on my book of life, not these books that you see behind, not reading from that. I have experienced that, and they have worked for me. I hope they will work for you. What are those 5 Mashelkar mantras? The first mantra is aspiration is your possibility. So keep them high. If you aim at Everest, you will at least reach Kanchenjunga. But if you aim at Kanchenjunga, you will not even reach Hanuman Tekri. And if you aim at Hanuman Tekri, you will stay where you are. So aim high. Aspiration is your possibility. You know. And I'll tell you from my personal experience. I came back to India in 1976, and at that time, India was a very poor country. We did not have anything. And I remember I wanted to start a new laboratory in rheology and non-Newtonian fluid mechanics, which is a flow of complex fluids. And an equipment I had to order, it would take 2 years because we didn't have dollars. So there was a control, there was a DGTD clearance, not manufactured in India certificate. So what option did I have? But I changed my field completely and went into another sort of field, modeling and simulation, and okay. But at the same time, when I became the director of National Chemical Laboratory, I remember we were importing. technologies, and we are dependent upon the imports. Basically, we are a closed economy. I said, no, National Chemical Laboratory will be International Chemical Laboratory. All right. And we became International Chemical Laboratory, where we started sort of offering our patents to US and so on. I remember in 1991, 3 of our US patents were transferred to General Electric, which was the leader in polycarbonate, the transparent plastic that you see, 40% market share. And we created something which was ahead of them. So we are capable of sort of thinking. So keep aspiration high, not National Chemical Laboratory, International Chemical Laboratory, and it made the difference. That is the point number one. Point number two is you have to have a purpose in life, you have to have perseverance, you have to have passion. And perseverance is most important. It is always too early to give up. Okay? Winners are never quitters, quitters are never winners. And in life, you will meet with failures. But you have to interpret fail in a different way. FAIL. First attempt in learning. So your best guru is your last mistake, provided you are prepared to sort of learn from. All right? There is nothing to be ashamed about sort of a failure. So that is the second part. The third part is we keep on knocking on doors of opportunity and they don't open. Then we get frustrated. Don't. Create your own doors. Like the example I gave. When I could not knock on the door to create the rheology lab, because imported equipment will come in 2 years, I said, forget about knocking there. I will create my own door. And I created this door on modeling and simulation. And can you believe it? 1977, I started the work. 82, I got Bhatnagar Prize, SS Bhatnagar Prize, which is the highest science prize that you get below the age of 45 in this country. But had I not done that, I'd just, let me wait for 2 years because that door is not opening. Where would I be? So that is the important. The fourth one, and particularly to the young, I want to emphasize that there is no substitute to hard work. You know, young people today, they want instant success. Okay, but like instant coffee, there is no instant success, by the way. I'm 77 now, okay, but I work 24/7, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. I begun my day today at 10:40. I'll end my day at night at 9 o'clock. I have continuous set of meetings at the age of 77. So work hard. There's no substitute. But I would say work hard in silence. Let success make all the noise. Remember that. Now the last point, which is the most important, I want to emphasize, is there is no limit as far as human being is concerned. There is no limit to endurance. There is no limit to human achievement. There is no limit to imagination, excepting the limit that you put on yourself. And we have seen that. Look at this pandemic. That 15-year-old girl, Jyoti Paswan, if you remember, okay? She had her father who had broken his knees. She drove him to the village, 1,200 kilometers on bicycle. She put him on the bicycle and 8 days. In fact, it is so inspirational that there is a film that is going to be made for her. That's why I say there is no limit to human. You know, I read on the other day a story of a Japanese who wanted to break a record by being the oldest person, and at 70 he broke that record. But then somebody came and broke his record. Somebody who was 75, 76, etc. So at the age of 80, he again broke that record, just to show that is the kind of human spirit that we have. So I think we have to sort of bear that in mind, that what you can achieve only limits you. And I would like to end by recalling from my personal book of life what Professor C.N.R. Rao told me. Professor C.N.R. Rao is a Bharat Ratna, as you know. He's the greatest scientist of India. And I have a number of gurus. My first guru was my mother. She said highest standards of excellence for me. If I get 97 out of 100, I would be happy. But she would sit down. She was an illiterate lady. She would tell me where you lost the 3 marks. So she was the first one. Second was Principal Bhave. And there are a lot of textbooks now. And you have heard about Bhave sir and the convex lens and the paper and the focus, etc., etc., and how I was inspired. Then Professor M.M. Sharma was my third guru, great guru, you know, under whom I did my PhD. And Professor C.N.R. Rao is my fourth guru, basically. This is covered. There is lesson on my life in 10th standard textbooks, and you must have read that. But Professor C.N.R. Rao did something fantastic. I remember I became Fellow of Royal Society, FRS, 1998. What is FRS? After Nobel Prize, there are a couple of highest science prizes. FRS is one of them, by the way. And as was mentioned, you sign in the same book where Newton has signed. And in 360 years, by the way, I'm very proud to say that I signed in that book. So when I was studying Newton's first law and second law of motion in school, if somebody had told me that you will sign in the same book that Newton has signed, I would not have believed it. So there's a great honor. And I phoned up Professor C.N.R. Rao. Sir, I've become FRA. You know what was his response? Not bad. So I was very disappointed. I said, well, it meant nothing. Then there was this American Academy of Arts and Science. And it was built in 1780 by Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. And I remember 200 Nobel laureates are its members, right from Benjamin Franklin to Winston Churchill to Einstein. Big. But only 7 Indians from 1780 have become. I was the 7th. So I thought that's a great honor. I called him. You know what was his response? Not bad. Then I became US National Academy of Inventors. At least there I was the, for example, FRS. There are only 3 engineering scientists who have become FRS, by the way, from India. One is my guru, Professor M.M. Sharma, and second is Professor Rudham Narasimha, and third is myself. So I was the 3rd. Here I was the 7th. But here I was the 1st, National Academy of Inventors. So I thought, now he will get impressed. So I called him. You know what was his response? Not bad. Then I got disappointed. And I said, sir, and then I got upset also. I said, sir, what do I have to do to impress you? And what he told me, I would like to leave you with that message. This is the 5th Mashelkar mantra. What he said is that, Mashelkar, you are climbing a ladder of excellence, which has no limit. Which has no limit, excepting the limit you put on yourself. And in a similar way, Dr. Manmohan Singh, in my last this thing with him, I remember when I became, when we were celebrating the CSR, he had given a message saying your best is yet to come. You put it together. What you are basically saying is that no matter what we achieve, you have to say your best is yet to come and strive for the best. So here is the mantra for you. The mantra is you will be in your, let's say, you will be 15-year-old, then you will become 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 100. You will live for 100 years, by the way. This generation is going to live that. Every day, even when you are 89, you get up in the morning and say, my best is yet to come, and maybe today is the day when it will come. And that's what I do, by the way. I say, I get up in the morning and I say, my best is yet to come, and maybe today is the day. And if you do that, and all children, all this future of India that I'm addressing now does it, India will be a completely different place. All right? It will have that position in the Committee of Nations, which is right up there, which it always deserved. All my choices, blessings are with you. All my best wishes are with you. Climb that ladder of excellence and without putting any limit, and you will be there. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We are truly blessed by the presence of such splendid personality. The words of why to assemble Apple in India, while we can create our own company like Apple in India, have truly inspired us a lot. We take an oath that our footstep would be marching towards making India Atma Nirbhar. And some of budding aspirants have questions in their mind. Can we have a short Q&A session?
Yeah, sure. I'll be very happy to answer.
So the first question is one of our, from the faculty. How can we boost confidence level of our students?
Yes, can you collect a few questions and then I will answer them? Collect a few.
Okay, sir. I repeat. Do you have ever experienced large difference in scientific culture in India and other countries?
Yeah, okay. And third one?
What
Why?
will be the
What?
major obstacles in achieving Atma Nirbhar Bharat and how can we overcome that?
All. Okay, so I'll take these first three questions and then we can sort of move. How we can build confidence? Uh, I personally feel that you have to develop an attitude where you say nothing is impossible. You have to develop an attitude that yes, we can. And once you set that objective, then follow the five Mashelkar mantras and you will achieve what sort of you want to achieve. That's the most important part. You know, with regard to aspirations, I'll tell you how you can actually sort of do that. First of all, you have to dream big, all right, and then comes basically the action. Now, what I find most interesting in our young people is the kind of aspiration level that they have. All right, that means they have the confidence. Now, how does that come? I'll give you a story. First of Bill Gates. I remember meeting him 9, 10 years ago in Delhi over a dinner. It was a dinner come discussion. And we had, I remember Nandan Nilekani was there, Anand Mahindra was there, some of us. And he told us something. He said that I was invited by Harvard University to give the commencement lecture. And in that lecture, I declared myself to be the most successful dropout from Harvard. All right, and which he was. And then he told us a very interesting story that in those early days of making computers, hardware was getting manufactured by a firm in Albuquerque. Okay, and that firm, he said, if they are manufacturing hardware, they will require software. So he phoned them up. He was barely 18, 19. And he said, you are doing hardware, I will give you software. And he told us he half expected they will keep the phone down. You know, in those early days, now, who will trust an 18, 19-year-old when the computer was just starting? They did not do that. They did not keep the phone down. They said, come after a month. We are not ready as yet. And what Bill Gates said was, thank God they said, come after a month. I did not have the software that I was offering. Now, here is the self-confidence. The company had confidence in that young man. And that young man had confidence in himself that I will deliver it. I will promise and deliver it. I think that is what we have to basically build. And there is a role for the parents there. There is a role for teachers there. There is a role for the society there to make them confident. I know that there is no better guru than actually success, but before that comes, failure is the first step, as you possibly know. And we are not a tolerant society. We don't tolerate failures, basically. Because the moment you have failure and you hammer that fellow, he loses confidence. Okay? But despite failure, if you support him, he becomes something fantastic. So I think it is that makeup of the mind that's extremely important. Scientific culture, of course, we have this big challenge in India. You have seen Ganpati दूध पितो ही अफवा सगळीकडे पसरल्यानंतर रांगा लागल्या इथे, पण इथेच नव्हे, लंडन मध्ये सुद्धा. सो आय थिंक वी हॅव टू मूव अ लॉंग वे फ्रॉम दॅट. श्रद्धा असावी, पण अंधश्रद्धा असू नये. दॅट इज द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट पार्ट. टुडे वी टॉक अबाउट मंगळायान. मंगळावर गेलो आपण. आणि इट्स अ प्राऊड अचीवमेंट ऑफ इंडियन सायन्स अँड टेक्नॉलॉजी. कारण other countries, they had many failures before they could go to Mars. We succeeded in the very first effort. Even Europe, US had failed, China had failed, but we succeeded. So it's a great scientific achievement. And Mangalayan त्याच्या फेऱ्या मारते मंगळाच्या. पण ह्या मुलीला मंगळ आहे म्हणून तिचं लग्न होत नाही. हे चालणार नाही, नाही का? So I think that scientific temper, I think there is some way to go. But what I'm hopeful is this is a new generation now. The young dominators, by the way, oldies like me are getting less and less and less and less. All right. If you look at the proportion of young people in India, that is rising. So I think that will be a thing in the past. What are the obstacles? There are a number of obstacles. Some of them are created by ourselves, and some of them happen naturally. I think, let me give an analogy. You see this book, this is leapfrogging to pole vaulting. Leapfrogging to pole vaulting. This book came up because I'm chairman of Reliance Innovation Council, and I was talking to Mukesh Ambani, and once he said, Doc, we must leapfrog. So I said, let us think about leapfrogging. Why does the frog leap? The frog leaps because he's afraid of the predators. He's afraid of the enemy. And how much does he jump? 4 or 5 feet. Why do we want to do that? Because we are afraid of our competitors, we jump a few feet. We should pole vault. The size of the pole determines the size of your aspiration and how far you can go. That is how this book actually came up. And I'm very proud to tell you that last year, 2019, this won the best business book of the year award. Why? Because it shows that if you are determined, you can actually do it. For example, in mobile data transmission, we are 155th, right? Till 2018. In 2018, we did not leapfrog from 155th to 100. We pole vaulted to number 1 position. We are number 1 now. You see. So how can India do that pole vaulting? I think that is the spirit. It's not these 2 books. I think the messages of both these books that are written. One is reinventing India, and while reinventing, not leapfrogging, but pole vaulting are very important. Now your question is, what are the obstacles? Now imagine you are pole vaulting. What is happening? When you are pole vaulting, you start from 0 velocity, right? And then you accelerate and kinetic energy. And that kinetic energy takes you over. Now while you are running, if there are obstacles, what happens? You have to start all over again. And these obstacles can be put by many things. The society can put it by saying, oh, this can't be done, we can't believe it. The government can do it by bringing a regulation which will step us back. All right. And by the time they remove the regulation, we have lost it. It can be because internally we don't feel confident. As soon as a new idea comes, you know, what are the common things people will say? Oh, it has never been done before. So how can we do it? Now, I always give them an example. What do you mean by it was never done before? This did not happen before, but it is there. So past is not an indication of our future. All right? Or there will be always some skepticism. Somebody has done it before, or something defensive all the time. But that is internal. So there are 2 kinds of obstacles. One is what the outside world puts on you, and what you put on yourself. That's why I said, you have to put no limits. You have to say, yes, I can, and then we will. So I answered all your 3 questions. First on confidence, second on scientific culture, and third on obstacles. Can we have the next questions?
How do we motivate students for the startups instead of finding out jobs after graduation?
Yes, that is one. Second,
How we as a faculty and individual will help the nation as well as the society to fulfill the visions of the Atma Nirbhar Bharat.
okay. And third,
What fundamental educational reforms will make the self-reliant and the disciplined youth?
all right. Very good. So let me start with the last one. You know, we just have new education policy. And I applaud that policy very much. I think it's an excellent policy which has gone into the fundamentals. What we really require in education is the flexibility, the freedom, empowering the student, making the education student-centric, not teacher-centric. All right. uh, allowing many ideas to flow and so on and so forth. So there are fundamental changes that we have to make. For example, our exam system. Our exam system is based on single correct answer. And if you don't get that, you get 0. But is there a single correct answer for anything except in science? Newton's first law is first law. Avogadro number is Avogadro number. But if you leave that, there is a solution. So what I do, I'm Sir Louis Matheson, I'm a distinguished professor in Monash University. Every April I go there. 13th year this was, but I couldn't go this year because of pandemic. So I teach innovation classes there, and also wherever I give lectures in India, particularly with children, I do a simple experiment. And the simple experiment is that I take a glass which is half filled with water, and I say I have to take out water. Come on, let's start. How do I take it? The first is the obvious one, pour it out. The second is break the glass. Third is put tissue paper. Fourth, they say unat theva to glass, bashpivan hoil. Fifth, remembers that story of the crow, kavड्याची गोष्ट आठवते त्याला, वगैरे वगैरे. And after 7 or 8, it starts tapering off. I say there are 42 ideas. And I show them. Now the basic issue is to make children think of these alternatives rather than saying this is a fixed answer from this textbook and reproduce it. So they, हे जे घोका आणि ओका हे जे आहे ना हे बदललं पाहिजे. So the new norm has to be not learning by rote, but learning by doing. And doing what not teacher says. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, then you are following. But learning by creating. And not just creating, co-creating. Because the new word is where you have to work together to sort of make it happen. And it's not just man and machine. It is not robots anymore. It is cobots, cooperative robots. The dialogue should not be man versus machine. It should be man and machine. All right. So that is the basic change I think we need to bring out. That is most important. And also the flexibility. I'll tell you, I myself have been a teacher in my life. Let me tell you a little story. I was a visiting professor at Delaware University in the chemical engineering department, which was ranked among the top 3 or 4 in US. And I was teaching a course on process fluid mechanics. And the 90 students, in India, we'll have one class for 90 students. No, they had 3, 30, 30, 30. So I had to repeat the same lecture 3 times, 10 to 11, 12 to 1, 2 to 3. And I used to get bored. All right. So I started doing experiments. I would go to the library and pick up a video cassette, for example, Low Reynolds number hydrodynamics by J.I. Taylor. I would come to the class and show it, basically, for 15 minutes. And the rest 30 minutes, I'll distribute papers, answer papers, and say, based on this, these are my questions, answer them. Why was I doing that? Not teaching a standard class. Because in education, observation, analysis, and synthesis is most important. How do you observe? All right. Then how do you synthesize based on what you observe? How do you analyze? And then how do you synthesize? So these were the sort of fundamental. And unlike in India, it's only here only the teachers evaluate the students. Students evaluate the teachers, and their promotion depends on that. By the way, one of the reforms we must bring in is this: the students must evaluate the teacher. And there are some 20-25 questions, by the way, and very subtle. Like, for example, does the professor have an ability to spot that you are lost? So you are looking at the students, say, "Oh, David, you are not with me." That kind of a thing. And then they give marks on each one of them. And I remember that year, in 1988, I was ranked as number 1 in that great college. That kind of Atirati Maharatis of chemical engineering. And most interestingly, one student wrote there that because you don't disclose the name and you can write anything, and American students can write anything, आपल्यासारखं ते sir वगैरे ते नाही आहेत ते. And he wrote, actually, Professor Mashelkar has made me discover myself, reinvent myself. I don't know how to thank him. I like to name my firstborn child after him. Can you just imagine? All right. Now look at Indian conditions. First, will we be allowed to teach differently? Will we be allowed to examine differently? Exam, give marks. And third, will we respond in the way that we basically did? So these are fundamental reforms. I'm telling you from my book of life. Actually, because I have been a proud student of this. I think that is what is important. Last point about startups. I think what is happening is that I will say that this new mood of the nation is not to, let us say, go and apply for a job, but to create jobs. I mean, we are the fastest growing nation as far as startups are concerned, and I'm very closely involved. I just give you one example of a startup. You know, this kind of thing. You can just imagine it's a kind of a breakthrough. So they are well tuned to do that. We have to create an atmosphere where we support them. All right, and that has to come right from parents. तू आता नोकरी कर, हे करू नकोस, उगाच फेल झालंस तर काय होईल, हे होईल, ते होईल. No, give a chance. We have to create an atmosphere, we support them. For example, startups, they have difficulties because they don't have capital, this, that, etc. So we must support them with what is called as a patient capital. All right. We must trust them. Okay. Now, the Maharashtra State Innovation Society, I'm very proud. In Maharashtra, we are doing something fantastic. I don't know how many of you have seen the Maharashtra State startup policy. It is the best in India, by the way. In which what we do is that, for example, patenting is very expensive. We give them 80% of the expenses. We make their things move fast. And we give them a chance because, see, the basic issue is that when you are a startup, and supposing you are applying for a government contract, you have practically zero chance of getting it. Why? Because you will always require experience. And how will a young startup will have experience? It is like Sachin Tendulkar, who at the age of 15 hit a Ranji Trophy century. Okay? But then if you, before taking to test, they will say, where is your 10-year experience? It is something like that. You can't do that. So in Maharashtra, we have taken a very bold policy. We have changed the tendering rules for startups. And we give them work orders. In the startup week that Maharashtra has, basically, it's amazing. The winners are given work order. I'll give you an example. I'm in Pune, right? Now, one startup had created drones, which actually float on the surface of water and can do any act, including the cleaning. Right? Very unique technology. Now, PCMC gave him work order without having to ask for competitive bids, that, and then evaluate and age and experience and etc. Nothing. He gave him. And he did such a fantastic job, on cleaning up. Ganesh Chaturthi झाल्यावर तुम्हाला कल्पना आहे काय होतं ते. आणि after he was successful, he is getting in several cities now. So we gave them a chance. So I think my basic point is trust. I'm afraid I will have to move because I have another engagement. I had booked up until 12 o'clock and at 12:15 I have something. So I will like to end here having asked these 6 questions, answered these 6 questions by just telling you, I want to assure you that we are looking at a new India now. You are looking at India. And that new India is like this. I'm always selling India everywhere, all around the world. Like I did just day before yesterday when I gave a talk to the Indo-US Business Council. They were Americans. And again, I sold India on how we did etc. So I'm always selling India. So one of that is higher education system. So I, like you have in Vidya Pratishthan. So what happened was I was interacting, and I always interact with the young because with a selfish motive that in their presence I become younger. So I told them, look at Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO. Look at Sundar Pichai, Google CEO. They were both products of our education system, and they became like, you must also become like that. So I thought I had said something which will inspire them. So one young fellow got up, and that's the Navin PDA, Baraka. He looked at me and said, "Sir, मला वाटत नाही तुम्हाला कळतंय आमच्या डोक्यात काय ते." So I said, "What is it? What is in your mind?" So he said something interesting. He says, तुमच्या पिढीला काही करून अमेरिकेत जायचं. त्याची पुढची पिढी जी आली, केवळ अमेरिकेतच जायचं नाही, पण मायक्रोसॉफ्ट मध्ये जॉब पाहिजे, गुगल मध्ये जॉब पाहिजे. त्याची जी पुढची पिढी आली, त्याच्यामध्ये केवळ अमेरिकेत जायचं नाही, मायक्रोसॉफ्ट गुगल सारख्या कंपनीमध्ये जॉब नाही मिळवायचे, पण त्याचा बॉस बनायचं, सीईओ बनायचं वगैरे वगैरे. म्हटलं आमची पिढी ही नाही. आमच्या पिढीला आमचे मायक्रोसॉफ्ट, आमचे गुगल आमच्या भारतामध्ये इथे करायचे. अशी ही आपली आजची मुलं आहे आणि आपल्या सर्वांची जबाबदारी आहे की त्यांना मदत करायला हवी की ते त्यांचे मायक्रोसॉफ्ट, त्यांचे ऍपल, त्यांचे गुगल इथे भारतात करतील. नमस्कार.
Thank you so much, sir, for your guidance and taking the time to speak to us today on this very important topic. Now, I would